Today I'm speaking to Ali Illot of Heritage Estate Planning. Ali, we've got some questions really around wills, which is what you specialise in. It's just really tricky, isn't it, when you perhaps get divorced and start a new family and you haven't got a will and the implications of that. So what would happen, say, for example, if mum and dad split up? We're talking perhaps about sort of older kids, maybe in their 20s, 30s, whatever.
Okay.
Mum and dad split up. Mum goes on to start another family with somebody else, but doesn't want to make a will, maybe, doesn't want to upset anybody, and sort of sticking your head in the sand situation. Do you get that very much?
Yeah, sadly, it's quite a common situation. I think there's a number of things that do put people off making a will, and the thought of it being very complex or upsetting can definitely put the brakes on things for people. So it's not uncommon that we hear this, but it is a complicated situation. So very important to make a will.
So what would you sort of advise for somebody in that situation? They come to you and they want to make a will. They've got perhaps young children plus the older siblings.
The older ones, yeah. So it would really be just trying to understand what their wishes would ultimately be, whether they want to provide equal distribution to all the children or differing amounts because they're at different stages in their life and that kind of thing. And you've got adult children that could receive any inheritance straight away, and children where it would need to be held in trust. And I suppose the added complication you've got in the type of scenario you've mentioned there is the new partner. Is that someone that the mum is going to marry? Because that would alter things as well. If you make a will and then you get married, marriage invalidates a will. So that's another complication perhaps to talk through. And if the intention is never to marry, but to build a life with this person, then would they want to factor then into some kind of either part of the estate or some kind of trust planning to provide protection during their lifetime? So there's quite a number of things to consider, but it would be my job to take that complicated situation and worry about how to put it in a legal document. It's just really important to extract from that client what they ultimately want to achieve and who they want to provide for. That's the conversation.
Yeah. So if somebody wrote a will and then they got married, then they'd have to write a new will.
Yeah, unless the will was written in contemplation of marriage, and there's a specific clause that can be put in a will quite early on that just says, if I marry a certain person, my will remain valid in legal terms. So a lot of people who are living together, we put that clause in because they say, well, you know what, we might get married. So just to provide that protection, if that clause is in there, the will remains valid. But if that clause doesn't exist, the will's invalid and a new will would be needed. And if no will was made, then the estate would be distributed as per the government's rules of intestacy, which might not quite be what they want.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I didn't understand. I didn't realise all of that. So say the couple got married, is there a will that they could put in place, that the mum could put in place to still leave stuff to children from a previous marriage? Or does it all automatically go to the new spouse?
So if they make a will, they can leave it however they want. In this country, we have testamentary freedom, so you can do whatever you want to do in whatever proportion you want to do. So that's absolutely fine. If you don't make a will and it followed the rules of intestacy, the first thing it looks at, it would look at the value of the estate. And if the value of the estate, let's just say, was 250,000, just for argument's sake, in that situation, if you're married, everything would go to the spouse, nothing to the children in that situation. If the estate's worth more than that, let's say it's worth 400,000, something like that, then your spouse would still get the lion's share of it, but half of the excess would be distributed equally between all children. So whether it was the older ones or the younger ones, there isn't any differentiation about need or anything else. It would just be split equally, but it would be quite a small proportion of the overall estate. The majority would go to the spouse, which perhaps in this situation might not quite be what was intended.
Okay, I didn't realise there was sort of that cut-off point with where it got distributed to the children. So
Not if you're married. If
already.
Yeah, no, and most people don't realise this. I think that's the thing. If you're not married, so if she just continued to cohabit, so let's say that was the situation, then absolutely everything would go to the children. Nothing to the cohabiting partner, even if they've been together for 40 years, which again, you could argue, you know, whether you feel that that's right, but cohabitees have no legal rights at all. So very important if you're cohabiting to make that will.